Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of The Fishing Teacher, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check out today's episode. And guys, looking forward to 2026, I want to talk about one technique that you need to learn to master for next year in order to catch some really quality fish and lots of them. This is something that's it's sort of a forgotten technique. A lot of people don't do anymore. So we're going to get into it in today's video, and I think it's going to add up to some good fish for you guys. I'm also, guys, real quick, invitation to invite you guys to check out my Fish of the Moment lake map breakdowns, guys. We got our winter maps up on the site. These are maps that have taken me 5 years to create for fishthemoment.com. I've got lakes of all across the country. Great resource, guys, to learn more about your favorite lake or a lake they're getting ready to go to that you've never been to. It's going to give you guys some good fishing places you can go right to, download them on your GPS unit. Tips and advice, an overview of the lake. It's a really, really good tool. So I'll put my Fish of the Moment lake map breakdown link in the description of this video. And also, guys, anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, just go to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler, and shoot me a private message. We're getting a lot of jerkbait lessons getting booked right now, so really appreciate that. Okay, guys, here's the technique I want to school you on that you need to learn, that you probably think you know a little bit about, but probably don't know as much about as what you think. And if you don't, you need to do it. And that is old school flipping a big jig. Flipping a big, heavy jig with a big trailer on it like that is pretty much a forgotten technique. Think about the last time that you've ever heard of a tournament getting won flipping a jig. People just don't do it. There's so many different type of techniques out there that you do not hear about people flipping just a full-size jig anymore. A lot of people, when they talk about jigs, anymore, they're talking about dragging a football head jig or fishing a little finesse jig. But what I'm talking about is a full-size, normally a dark color like black and chartreuse or black and blue, half-ounce jig. This is my Blaukat Throwback jig, living rubber jig. That's another thing with it, flipping a living rubber jig. I'll put my throwback jig link in the description of this video if you guys would like to get one, on heavy line with a flipping stick. So we're talking about 25-pound test fluorocarbon line, flipping stick, half-ounce jig, normally with a big trailer like the Zoom Super Chunk right here, or a salty chunk, or even a pork frog can be really good with that. Now, I don't understand why the flipping a big jig has become such a forgotten technique, because it's still an incredible way to catch fish. And most people, when they think about flipping and pitching, they think about, like a beaver or creature bait. They're flipping something smaller. They don't flip a big jig anymore very much. Only the people that do it pretty much are just the hardcore old school jig fishermen. And one of the things about this is that a lot of the fish have forgot what jigs look like because they don't get used much anymore. If you look at people that are pitching and flipping, they've usually got like a brush hog or a beaver, some type of creature bait, a Texas rig worm, some type of little crawdad looking thing with flapping legs on it, like a rage car or something like that, but not just the old school jig like this, especially with the straight type chunk trailer on it. So let's get into why this works and why you really need to master it, and some tips and advice on how to master it. First of all, when you go to a big jig like this, you're not going to get as many bites. I've had days where I've got tons of bites on it, but normally you're not going to get as many bites, especially the darker you go. If you stay with the lighter colors like the browns and greens, you're going to get more bites. But as you go to the black and blues and the black and chartreuses, you're not going to get as many bites, but your fish are going to be bigger. Your fish are going to average probably a half a pound or pound bigger. If you throw these two jigs right here and the color variations, you're probably going to average a half to a pound bigger on the dark jig like this. That's just sort of the inherent nature of that. Okay, now a couple different things that you need to remember on this. First of all, half ounce is the key size. In the Blaukat Throwback, we make 3/8, half, and 5/8. Half ounce is sort of like the standard size. If you want to really just get started on it, just get you a handful of the half-ounce size. That's a good thing with it. Next with that is the heavy line is critical. And I don't mean heavy braided line. You do not want to fish a full-size jig on braided line. It's not the best line for it. Number one, the fish can see the line. Number two, you need to have some stretch, and braid doesn't have any stretch. And it's just overkill. You don't need it. So I use 25-pound test Seaguard Visex fluorocarbon all the time. That's what I use 100% of the time for my jig fishing. Megabass Alkalies Flip and Stick. The 25-pound test line is key for a couple different reasons. Number one, the way that a half-ounce jig falls on 25 fluorocarbon, it gives it sort of a horizontal fall, which is really appealing to the fish. And you've got the right property of sensitivity and stretch and power. Unless your line is really frayed bad, you're never going to break off on it. So the equipment, is really key with that. One of the big mistakes I see people make jig fishing is they use too light a line. I don't know how many people that I've had like on the water lessons where I say we're going to go flipping, or they want to learn how to flip, and they'll show up with 15-pound line on their big jig. That's too light. 25-pound test is what you want with that. Okay, the next thing with that is when you're talking in terms of structure with the big jig. This is another reason a lot of people struggle with it, because they don't fish the right type of structure. They fish too sparse of areas with it. A big jig is designed to be fished around some type of cover for the most part, unless you're dealing with really stained water. So when you're thinking about fishing a big jig, you want to look for the heaviest cover in the lake. It could be, maybe a boat dock, like the complexities of underneath a boat dock walkway, or the pilings on a dock. That could be heavy cover for your lake. It could be some grass beds like hydrilla or milfoil. It could be lily pads. It could be lay down trees, whatever that you have in there. But you need to find whatever the heaviest cover in the lake that you have is. That's going to be the primary thing with it. I'm not saying that you can't catch them on a big jig, like pitching it to a bare bank once in a while. You can do that occasionally, especially like during the pre-spawn. You can just like pitch it to bluff banks and rocks and catch them. But normally the first thing that I do is I try, whatever lake I go to, I try to identify whatever the heaviest cover is. If I'm going to flip a jig down at the Potomac River in Maryland, I'm going to be flipping at lily pads or milfoil. If I go down to Lake Okeechobee, I'm going to be flipping it in cattails and reeds. If I go to here in Missouri, I'm going to be looking for flooded bushes in the spring, or lay down trees or docks or something like that. So it just completely depends on where you're at. But a big jig needs to be fished around some type of a cover with that. Another thing that you need to remember on a big jig is how to work the bait. It's a little bit different than traditional type of lures. Let's say, for example, you flip a plastic worm into a tree and you're just sort of working it like this, just shaking it, working it. On a big jig, since it's larger, you sort of have to create a reaction strike. So make your pitch into the piece of cover you're fishing, and once it gets down there, hop it like that. Watch my rod tip, hop it like that. So this jig, on a Texas rig worm, you're just sort of hopping it along the bottom, but on a jig, you're wanting to hop it up maybe a foot or two off the bottom and let it go back down. That is another thing that's going to generate a lot of reaction strikes with it, is how you work it. Some people have a problem like switching from a Texas rig to a jig, but there's no difference. It's like if you're flipping a beaver creature bait on a half-ounce slip sinker, it feels, sorry about that, guys, got the video glitch there, had to start over again. But anyway, what I was saying is if you're flipping like a beaver or creature bait on a half-ounce sinker, it's no different than flipping a half-ounce jig. It's going to feel a little bit different because a jig has more of a sort of a vertical movement to it rather than dragging it like Texas rig across the bottom. But if you can catch them on a Texas rig, you can catch them on a jig too. So don't let that intimidate you with it. A lot of people sort of get that limitation in their mind. But the main thing, guys, is just do it. It's like, this is a technique that sort of have been forgotten. It sort of got thrown to the wayside. I still catch a ton of fish on it, guys. Probably about 25% of the bass I catch throughout the course of the year, even in 2025, is flipping a big jig on heavy line. I just love to do it. I mean, it's like a thing where you go out and you're going to be expecting to catch 5 to 10 fish a day. They're going to be quality fish. And I know if I get on a flipping bite and I get behind somebody that's flipping a worm or a tube or a creature bait, and if I get the same amount of bites that they do, or even if I get a limit of bites on it, I'm going to beat them on the jig for sure. And there's just something about a jig thump, man. It's like, if you guys have ever caught them on a jig, it's like, you know what I'm talking about. You'll flip that thing in there and you'll let it set the bottom, you'll hop it, and all of a sudden your line will just jump in the air like that. It's like, those fish have been held that thing, or, you just see your line swimming out real fast with it. But most everybody I know that's a veteran jig fisherman, it's like their favorite technique. They just love it. There's something about the bite on a jig, the presentation of it. It's just a quality fish technique. So anyway, guys, give it a try this year. Like I said, you can get it. I got 6 different colors, 3 different sizes at Tackle Warehouse on my throwback jig. I'll put the link in the description. I'd recommend getting you some browns and greens and a few black and blue, black and chartreuses, 1/2 ounce size. Get you a spool of 25-pound test Seaguard Vizex line and pull that flip and stick out and go after it. So we'll talk later.